And let's see why that failed. So it says expected collection contained 1423. Actual collection contained 14142323. Right? So do you know what that means?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Okay, I don't know. I'm just going to take a guess. So I think it wants it to return these exact pairs.
Steve, you know what's happening here?
But it looks like we got duplicates instead. It's kind
I
of
don't
what
think
we were
Steve can hear me.
discussing earlier.
Right. So you have to remove the duplicates from the pairs.
Right.
And can you see if that's the case with the other errors?
So that's that one. Yeah, it looks like it's the same here. So you only want -3 and 1, but then there again are duplicates. Same with this one. And then why did the endpoint timeout for this one?
Well,
It probably timed out because the other ones aren't working. Okay, all right, let's get rid of the duplicates.
right. Right. So we have our pairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now how would we? All right. So right, if we have our pairs, right? How do we check? How do we check now if the pair is already in the array in the pairs array? How do we check if we already have the pair?
Uh, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, right. If the pair is already there, there's going to be one pair that has element and target. So if you push the pair, right? So before you push a new pair, right, you have to loop through the pairs array, and you have to see, right, if the element or the you have to see if the element and the target is in that same pair. You have to see if the element and target is in one of the pairs. You have to loop through the pairs array first, and then for each pair, you have to check if the element and the target is in the current pair, and if it is, then you don't push it.
Okay, say that one more time.
Right. So all right, let's not think about it code like. Let's try to think about it in like real life. So in real life, how do you check if how do you check? All right, so say for example, right, you have a bag full of items, right? How do you check if, say for example, toothpaste is inside a bag?
You take all of the items out, or you just inspect the bag.
Okay, but right, but like, what would you do if each? Would you go through? Would you? All right, so you go through the item one by one. You take all the items out of the bag, and then each item you check to see if it's toothpaste, right? And if it's not, you move to the next one, and to the next one, right? Until there's nothing in the bag, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what does that sound like in code? That action where I go through items one by one. What does that sound like?
It sounds like iterating or looping through. Um, it sounds like a loop to me. I don't know.
right? And how would you do a loop? How would we do that loop in Ruby?
Um, it would be kind of like what we did here on line 18.
Okay, so so now this bag that we're looking for an element, right? So we that's line 18. So which variable here would be the bag? Would it be the pairs variable?
Yes.
Right. So that let's try to like first things first, let's try to make a loop with that pairs variable.
Okay, so where am I making this loop? Like on which line?
Right. After line 22.
After line 22. Um, so I would say pairs dot each, and I don't think we need with index, so it would just be do, and then oops, I don't know what I got there. And then it would be like something like a pair or any variable, right?
Yeah.
So a pair. Oops. And then and the inside of it would be a pair. And okay, what do I do next?
Right. So right, we'll have to. So each pair has has two items in it, right? It's going to be the element and the target, right? So our current pair, which is on line 20, right, has element and target. So this pair on line 25 is an array. So we have to see if the if the element is inside the array, a pair, and we have to see if the target is inside a pair. Right? So
So
how do you see if a value is inside an array?
like this include
Right? So instead
on
of
line 21.
so instead of array dot include, it's a pair dot include.
Okay. So I would say if a pair include and
Then the item which we're looking for.
which is the target.
Yeah. And and if the and right, if it includes the element, right, then what we want to do is we're gonna instead of we're gonna do pairs each, we're gonna use pairs dot find. But if a pair is include the target and a pair include the element, right, we want to return true, right? We want to return the value true. And then we want to close that if statement.
Wait, isn't it closed here on line 27 or no?
Yeah, I think that's all right. Yeah, all right, 90. All right, very well. Yeah, in 90, and then so instead of pairs dot each, right, it's gonna be pairs dot find, and right, at least that's the job, and then you gotta set that expression line 24 equal to a variable is duplicate, right? So line 24 right? You're gonna set that value equal to the variable is duplicate.
Wait, wait. Repeat that again. On line 25, I'm saying is duplicate.
No, line 24, right? You have to set it that whole expression pairs dot find. You have to set it. It's equal. It returns a value, right? So you have to set that expression equal to a variable is duplicate.
Oh, so instead of a pair, it would be is duplicate.
No, so the line 24 starts with is duplicate.
Is duplicate.
What equals pairs,
Equals pairs.
right? And then if is duplicate, and then at the very end of this find expression, right? You'll say if is duplicate is false. If it's not a duplicate, then you want to push the pair.
Okay. So I'm saying where on which line am I writing that?
Right. So do you know, so we have expression, right? This code right here. Where we're and that's a variable. That all that code, right, from line 24 to the end of the expression, right? That's responsible for setting the is duplicate, right? So it'll have to be after this expression, right? And do you know what an expression is?
I've heard of it in math. I haven't heard of it in Ruby. We haven't used that.
So you see on line 16 how pairs is equal to something,
Yes.
right? So see, right? So from the beginning of from the beginning to the end, right? That expression is one line, right? We say pairs dot find, right? We say pairs dot find, right? But this value, right, is not one line. How many lines is this value? Right? The variable is duplicate, but the value, right, how many lines is that?
Are you talking about this is the value? Is this the value?
Right? It's
Or
inside the
is this the
value.
value?
Yeah, yeah, but that no, the value is the value is more than one line.
Is it 2 lines?
Well, all right. So parts dot find is the function, right?
Oh, here pairs dot find right here.
Yeah. So where does it end?
It ends at the end on the wait. Which end does it go to? I don't know which end it goes to, but it ends there. I guess. I think
Right. So
that's it.
that's the end, and that is going to be the end of the expression. So that so all this code from line 24 to 29 is expression, and then the result is going to be is duplicate. So we could only use the is duplicate variable after the expression.
Okay. So you're saying it can only be used here.
Right. So if it is a duplicate, do we push it to the pair?
Okay. So
Wait, so like before we write any code, like if it's a duplicate, do we push it to the pair?
no, because we
Right.
don't want the duplicates, right?
Right. So the duplicate is going to be true or false. So we need if statement, right? So if duplicate is
On which line again? Sorry.
right. So right, it's going to be line 30.
Line 30. So you're saying if is duplicate or if duplicate?
right? So the variable, right? What's the name of the variable?
Is duplicate.
Right. So that's the same variable we have to check here.
Is duplicate. Then so let me end this.
Right. So if
And
if is duplicate, right? Is so if right is the value gonna be true or false? Right. If it's
where
a duplicate, right? Do we push it? Do we push to the array if it's a duplicate or if it's not a duplicate?
we push through the array if it's not a duplicate. So you're saying so if is duplicate.
Right. So is duplicate should be a value, right? It's gonna be it's gonna be one or two values, true or false.
So if is duplicate true or no, or we could say if is duplicate true and or no, if is duplicate false, then we push to the array.
Right.
Okay. So then it would be wait.
So what's that? So what is the array? What's the name of the array that we're dealing with?
Um we're dealing with the pairs, right?
Right. So it's going to be pairs dot push. Right.
And then pair.
Right. Okay. But before that, right, you have to realize, like, I don't know Ruby like that. So you have to, before we run this code, right, we have to make sure that expression is the right way. We have to make sure that expression is correct in Ruby. We have to ask ChatGPT about the expression we just added to our code.
So what would I ask? Like, can an expression be used in Ruby?
Well, the expression is not expression is a concept, right? That code that we wrote from line 24 to 29 is an expression, right? So line 24, right, to line 29, that's the expression, right? Is that correct? Is that the correct way of getting the variable, getting the result, true or false, right? So we want is duplicate to either be true or false. We got to ask ChatGPT if this is the right way to do it. Well, the goal is not the expression. The goal is to get is duplicate, right? What's the goal, right? Remember what our goal is?
Yes.
Yeah, but all right, let's see the answer here. Yeah. Let's see what the answer says. Right? So
Any.
right, so if you want to find if any pair in the pairs array contains both a target and an element, right? You can simply use the any method, right? So that's the code. So that's the way that you want to do it. So you want to replace that expression with the expression we saw there.
Okay. So everything else seems to be okay. Let's run.
Yeah, you see on line 22 how we're pushing the pair twice? You want to delete all line 22.
Can I delete 21?
Well, before you, no, you can't, right? Because if the array's not in the target,
Okay, got it.
right? So now, right, in order to see if everything works, instead of dealing with sample, we have to grab the zero index, right, to see, right. So instead of we have to see if everything makes sense. So essentially, what you want is you want just two values, right? Okay, so we get the value true back. We shouldn't get the value true. Right, so we see return true, right? But it looks like we're returning true for the function, not for the value, right? But I think a better thing is you modified the code, but you didn't copy the expression, right? If you go to ChatGPT, right, as from earlier, right, it's modified code. It's whole new code, right? The expression you had before is not the expression in REPL, right? So you want to copy the expression, right, and replace this expression with the new one, right?
So you're saying copy the expression from ChatGPT?
Yeah. Right. So you see copy code, right? Then replace it. So from line 23 to 28, now you want to replace it with that new code. Right, and then we want to try to run this. Okay.
Okay.
So Steve, as you can see, as what we've done, right? We
Mm-hmm.
first, right? The way that we think about it, like before you could write code, we got to say, okay, what does this look like in real life, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, then we could turn that into code. So first, we got to see, right, if like so we have to see if that target's in the element. Then we got to see if there's a duplicate, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
we go from there, right? So, but the thing with these like DSA coding challenges, they're always like what's always interesting about them is like there's never like the best way. Like it's the same. What's weird about them once you start to do them is that there's one way to do it, and then there's a better way, and then there's always a better way. It never ends.
Yeah. There's always like you can make it one line or something like that, but it's then you got to think about readability. So
Right,
it just even though it might be one line, that's great, but it might not be readable.
right.
So
Yeah, and that's something that I'm dealing with in my application too, right? The so I have a situation where I try to like make it one line, but I'm like, all right, if I come back to it, right? If I come back to it, can I read? Can I know what's going on? And that's like, because
yeah,
I do want to make it short, because like I want to make the code short, so I don't gotta. But I have to realize that it's not about how short it is. It's about if I can understand it. I'm looking at this Flutter code I wrote, and I'm looking at the website code I wrote. I'm like, all right, the way I did even though it's the same amount of lines, right?
hmm
Because the way I did it was like, all right, let me just expand it instead of like try to make it smaller.
hmm
I know I could come back to it, and then there's like a bug in this website code. I don't even know what's going on. So
Yeah, it's weird though. I look at some of the like some might do Code Wars, and sometimes I look at how they're written it, and it's like, oh, it's great that you have one line. You're the only one that knows what it does. Everybody else is pretty much doesn't know how to read it the way you read it. So